Okay, good morning, everybody. I think I heard that Rob was a bad influence last night, so I think everybody may have had a few extra beers than what they should have. Thanks to Rob for that. I think so. This morning and today, got a few things on the few things on the agenda for today. Got a couple of discussions around AI, which I know quite a few have been asking about. So we've got Rohit who's going to kick us off, and then we've got a presentation from Baringa who are going to come in and do that, and then Lars on the credit optimisation, and then we've got an open forum where Ian from the support and services team is going to lead that from London, just in terms of getting your feedback, how things are on CRisk, and anything that we can do to kind of take us forward, really. So I'm going to hand over to Rohit. You want to?
Thanks, David. Let me share my screen. Hope everyone can see my screen.
Yep.
So, good morning, everyone. Hope everyone had a good night yesterday. We had our own party here. small party, but it was good. Yeah. Okay, so I'll start with hosting models and AI, and I'll start with the hosting model first. So I just want to walk you through a couple of hosting models that we have in Brady. So currently we have the Brady Cloud and Brady Hosted Azure, and I know that most of our customers are using on-premises. So this is just wanted to let you know that there are two more. There are a couple of options that you can opt in if you would like to do so. Because we could notice that a lot of people are moving towards Azure in the recent times. So this will be kind of a good option going forward if anybody is planning. So with the Brady Cloud and Brady Hosted Azure, we have quite a lot of, you will get quite a lot of advantage. That is like application installation and maintenance will be handled by our CRisk experts. So you don't need a dedicated IT person to just handle CRisk on its own. And the software and the infrastructure and updates, everything will be rolled out to you on a frequent basis. So you will never be on an updated software or an updated outdated infrastructure. In this case, if you are moving with Brady Cloud or Brady Hosted Azure. And always there is secure infrastructure and there's secure access to the application with the multi-factor authentication support. And even we can configure the single sign-on also for you. So we use Auth0 and the Azure AD for this. And it is easy to scale at any point of time. Like if you feel like, okay, the performance needs to be improved or your data size is increasing and you want to increase the your hard disk, or if the number of users are increasing, you might want to add a load balancer. So it's easy for us to scale. So you don't have to procure any IT equipment there from your side. So to make it more secure, we provide IP whitelisting, firewalls, network security groups from Windows, as Microsoft Azure AD, and all this. And we also support the disaster recovery also, so that it's your data is always kind of safe with us, and it's not going to be kind of, even in case of a disaster, you are not going to lose it because we keep it in multiple data centers, and also we can easily switch the connection as soon as something happens, something wrong happens. And with all of this, you will get a 24/7 support. So we have a dedicated cloud team available who is ready to support you at any point of time. So wherever you are in the world, it doesn't matter for us. It's just our team is there to support, both in the infrastructure or in the application support-wise. Just kind of a quick comparison. I'll not go through all of these details here. So there are some differences here. The main thing is that the hosting environment, we have a private cloud for Brady Cloud, And the Brady hosted Azure, we are directly using the Microsoft Azure. And if you're going with the on-premises, most of this, it is controlled by the customer, but here it will be controlled by Brady. But as I told, the main advantage that you're getting is you will get the experts kind of handling the sales. And another thing is that you get to choose where the data is. Where the Brady Cloud, you can choose either in UK or in any EU region, and with Brady hosted Azure, it is almost like wherever Azure is available, that's almost all over the world. So any region we can choose. It can be any country in the EU, in most of the cases. And that's quickly about the hosting model. And we are also planning for the future of how the hosting will look like. And just I want to make one thing very clear. Here, we are not moving away from the on-premises deployment in any of this case. So on-premises deployment will still be supported, but this is just our future vision on cloud native CRisk. So what we are planning to do is everything will be completely hosted inside Azure App Services and Azure SQL Database. That means that you are not going to have a virtual machine sitting there and where your database and like the IaaS is installed. It's mostly going to be a platform as a service here from Azure, from Azure. And we are trying to make it cloud agnostics so that you are not locked into Azure forever. So let's say if somebody wants to take their own Azure subscription and use the cloud native version of CRisk, whether it be Azure or whether it be Amazon, we are trying to make sure that it is supported across multiple cloud platforms. So and the first target will be Azure anyway, and then we'll be moving on to the next platforms. And it gives us a lot of advantage. Like the main advantage that I see here is the CI/CD driven automated deployments, which is like currently either the customer somebody from the customer end or somebody from our support side will be installing the packages. So that all is going to be automated. It will be in a button click. We'll be able to control that deployment from here. And we can segregate the environments like dev, UAT, pre-prod, and production. So we'll be able to do that like on a phased basis. And again, the scalability option is much more when it comes to cloud native CRisk, and we can even control a bit of the pricing there with switching off and switching on the app services and the SQL database instances on demand. That's same with the virtual machines also, but here you will get a bit more flexibility, and the price you'll be paying will be a little less. That's kind of, in short, what our future vision is. Any questions on hosting?
I was just going to add, I think it's important to note that when hosting, it also allows the team here, if there were any issues or anything like that, or any investigation needed, it's a lot quicker. We've got the data in front of us. We obviously ask for your permission to log in. It's all secure our end as well. It just means that we're able to turn around issues and look directly at the problem on your data set in real time. We have, on our other products at Brady, we have a lot of our customers do hosting, and we find it really advantageous from their side and our side to make sure that they're up to date with latest versions, and also understanding the customer, just to be able to log in and look at their data with their permission. So we find that has an advantage as well, and being able to work more collaboratively with them because we've got the system in front of us in real time.
Thank you very much, Robert. Maybe one question: how difficult is it to move to the cloud? So what was that, sorry? How difficult it is to move? How big of a project it is to the cloud from on-premise? Rohit, how difficult a project would it be to move from an on-prem solution to a cloud?
It's mostly currently I see that as a lift and shift, because current version that we support is the Azure Virtual Machine option. So it will be basically a lift and shift. So what we will need is your database and the app server setup. So we'll be just taking the image and restoring it in our environment, which will be faster. The actual activity will be faster, which can be completed in a day with the authentication. And we will, before we move, we will have some activity done from our side to set up the infrastructure for you. So once the infrastructure is done, it is like kind of a day's activity to shift it. And then the plan will be to then go ahead and test on those environments. And then once you give a go ahead, then we will be moving into prod. So like the initial activity might take 1 day without the infrastructure setup, and the production movement can be done in a half a day's time. But the infrastructure setup is what it takes a bit of time from our side. And the testing is basically from your end. So how much time do you want to test the application? So that should be factored separately.
Thanks, Rohit.
Any other questions?
No, I think you're good to move on.
All right. Okay, so yes, we have been doing some interesting research on AI. So to start with, just I want to give you a heads up that it's a research, and you might not see this in the product in maybe the next year or so. So it's just a research. We want to make sure that it's stable before releasing it. We have a proper AI use case. We have a proper legal statement, everything based on AI. So only after we establish kind of a AI methodology in Brady, we will be able to release this. So this is kind of a research preview that you are getting right now. What we have done with AI in CRisk. So we basically chose two use cases. One is like the AI powered credit assessment assistant, which is like a scoring assistant for you. And another one is like an AI powered CRisk support specialist who can try and find out some, help you with understanding the application. Okay, so what we are doing here is, so I'll mainly walk you through the use case one, and then I'll show you a demo of both the use case one and use case two that we have done. So the first thing that we have done is we have taken a rating methodology. So what we did is we created a Brady internal rating methodology, which is kind of an inspiration from the existing rating methodology from the market. And we have trained our AI model with that rating methodology. So what it helps you is like you can upload a financial statement into our AI chat, and the bot will assist you with rating and filling the score sheets. So filling the score sheets in the sense, let's say the financial statements are pretty huge. So you have to go through a lot of bits and pieces to understand where the things are, where the financial statement is. Let's say you want to quickly understand what was the 2023 overall revenue of such a company, or you want to see 2024 what was the revenue of the company, and you want to quickly fill it. Or there can be some unrated counterparties coming in, and you want to quickly rate it before going in for a trade. So the rating methodology assistant or the rating credit assessment assistant will help you do that. And what it does is basically it interprets the credit rating methodology and reads the annual report and kind of acts as like a helper for you, not really taking any decisions. So it's not going to take any decisions. It will give you kind of an output, but it's just for your reference. But it's you will still have the authority to control everything. And the next one, and then it can summarize the key financial signals, like the financial facts, quickly for you, so you don't have to read the PDF and spend a lot of time around it. And like any question that you can be answered in a natural language, so you don't like what, as I gave some examples like what is the financial, like what is the turnaround, sorry, not turnaround, the total revenue for 2024, 2023, all these things can be asked. And it's fully built on a document intelligence that we have built in-house. It's like it can parse PDF, it can read PDF, complicated tables. I'll show you an example of what we are basically processing. And then it can answer questions on that. And another main thing that I want to highlight here is a lot of you might have used the chat GPTs or the Geminis, and it's all running online. So what we are trying here is to host something locally so that if there is any private data that you're sharing, it's not shared across. So it stays inside the virtual machine itself. So that is one kind of highlight that we are trying to achieve. So if we with this route, obviously there will be a hardware requirement. So we will finalize that and we'll update that how the hardware requirements and everything looks like. But it's kind of an early research that we are doing here. So this is the data that we process. It's kind of the table data, and we have also, as I told, there is a support specialist, AI-powered support specialist that we are giving. So it is basically reading our user manuals, and for the credit rating assistant, we are looking at our annual reports from different companies, which is available publicly. So let me quickly take you to the functionality, CRisk GPT. So I'll just refresh everything so that make sure that everything is here. So first, I will take you through the support assistant, which is like we have named it the user manual. So it directly reads the user manual and it will give you kind of answers from it. So let me ask, one of the latest features that we have developed in 2025 is the netted deal feature. So let me ask about it. So as we ask, yes. So here it comes up with the answer, and it's purely based on what it is loaded in the user manual. So it gives you kind of an like extended answer on what the feature is, how you can use it, like what is some few functionality that is available. So there can be some discrepancy because we are still refining these models. So it's not 100% yet, but you might see some discrepancies. But we are refining this, and that's why we'll take some time to reach market. And let's say if somebody has another question, like another one that we can maybe go and ask is previous week. Explain about closeout netting. So it is just going to explain about our the closeout netting process here. So it's quite robust in picking up the minimal information that we give from our user manual and then making it more understandable with some description. We are also trying to add some examples also so that you benefit from this. And another one is, let's go to the rating assistant. And what I'll do is, currently we have Brady's internal rating methodology added. And I'll show you the document that I'm uploading. So there are a couple of documents. So it's a fake company, and it has it's called Nordexa that I named it. And this is a snippet of financial statement that you can see here. So this is what I'm going to upload, and then we can ask questions on the financial data here. We upload the file. So while it uploads, it normally processes the information also. It's not just uploading the document that is taking time here. It's like it is uploading the document and it is going through a document intelligence to get the relevant information from these PDFs. So let's ask you please rate So I'm going through a high level of questions so that you get all the information from the PDF. So it basically goes through the complete PDF, and you can see it is picking up the financial data like profit and loss, some revenue, and all this valid items that we need to do, and it basically proposes a rating for you. And based on the internal methodology that we have added, it is saying that it's in a BAA category. But this is not something that you have to take it. But the highlight is that you can ask questions on to this and pick up the financials, directly fill it in the score sheets. And if you want to go for a reasoning also, we can fill it. And there will be more improvements coming. We are trying to do on this so that your life with the scoring module also improves, and the same with the user manual or the support assistant also, which is eventually you will be able to raise some sort of Jira if you're not getting the answer that you're looking for. We are trying to maybe raise a Jira from there directly with all the questions that you have raised, and it gives us an option, and it will also start giving you the option to load the logs, etc., and then raise a ticket directly. So that's kind of our target with this. So these are some of the use cases that we have come up with. So we are done with the demo, and there are more potential use cases that we can go with. Some of these are as we did, a small example we did is summarizing the complex document. And even we can think about reading the actual news, the day-to-day or the live news feed that we get on the market, and find out if there is any impact as a credit analyst that you need to be aware of. So we can kind of have a news feed and push the latest information there. And we are also thinking about offloading complex calculations like Monte Carlo simulations, etc., to AI. And another one is suggest the next action as a credit analyst by looking at the system in real time, and also agentic analysis of incoming and outgoing margin calls and suggest action. So these are some of the use cases that we are thinking of. And one again on the use cases, one major note here, when personally when I started working with AI, what I understood is that it's not basically a query. It's not basically a database. So let's say if somebody has a requirement, like I want to understand the top 10 counterparties which has the highest exposure. So this is not the best tool to do it, but it is more of a reasoning sort of thing that we can utilize, because if you want to understand the top 10 exposures or rating split into exposures, so that is a different use case is what my thought is. So please feel free to suggest your use cases. So how CRisk and AI together can help you make the life as a credit officer much easier. So that's all about our research. So if you have any questions, if you have any suggested use cases, we can maybe look at those.
Is there a limitation on the language of the financials? Can we upload the Danish financials and then ask in English?
Can you hear the question, Royd?
Sorry, no.
Okay, there's a question about, let's say you upload a financial statement in a Danish language. Would you be able to translate it?
Yeah, AI will be able to translate it.
Hmm?
Yeah, it is it doesn't matter which language that you upload, so it will be able to translate from any language. And also another thing is let's say it can be in the statements can be in any currency. We can have a real-time link to online and get the currency rates, and even try and pass that also to the updated currency.
When it comes to use cases, I have two things. First of all, data quality. So identifying any data quality issues, it's been plausible in the system, or because you do spend a lot of time cleaning up data, trying to keep data with quality up to date. CRisk, that's something I think could be worthwhile. The other thing I thought when we just showed this rating use case, which I guess is certainly interesting, but I was thinking about extracting information from agreements of credit terms or information. You store them in CRisk, and then it's a very tedious manual process to go through these agreements, some of which are very extensive. Find out what the relevant credit terms are.
I think that's an interesting one. So, Rohit, have you thought about that? So the suggestion is to scan through master agreements, for example, or CSAs, and then sort of just automatically upload the information into CRisk, I suppose, in a structured way. So threshold, ratings, everything, MAC clauses, rather than having to sit there and type it all in.
Yeah, I think that is a good use case, basically, because AI is good at reading non-structured data, basically from PDFs and other things. So that's something that we can explore. So that's a good suggestion. So definitely we can add it into our use case that we are looking at.
I was just thinking about this newsfeed suggesting. I don't know how much you use that in your daily work, but if the system could sort of show you today there's an oil spill scandal from whatever BP, and there's a downgrade of mercury or something, like just the highlights from whatever is on the internet, would that be useful, or is it like you see it anyway, or so you scan through these?
I think we get an alert if something's huge.
Do you have a subscription on specific counterparties, or is just more corporation?
Also to limit it, otherwise you have all just die. So only the ones that.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. And if it can be calibrated properly, that could be really interesting, because in my experience, not necessarily AI based, but these news aggregators and alerts always a little bit tricky, because either you get 200 alerts a day, or you get one every 2 years, and it's 3 months too late. So it's difficult to find a sweet spot.
Yeah, and the news has to be created risk relevant. I mean, because there could be lots of other reasons for them to come up. Yeah. No, I know. It's tricky.
When is this ready to launch in making it available?
So we are still in process of finalizing in the sense we have to do a thorough testing here, because as you know, with AI can hallucinate a lot, and it can give you improper information, or it can give you information that is not very accurate. So we are trying to make sure that that doesn't happen with it. Like, at least minimize it. It will happen as it is AI, but we are trying to minimize those. So we are in process of refining it. So currently we don't have a timeline yet, but we will let you know when it is close to launch.
Is it possible to maybe get a kind of test trial to look into it and be a part of the testing for clients?
I think that is something definitely we can look at. So maybe, that is something. It will be good to work with a real user than rather be trying out a lot of different stuff. So you're very, very welcome to do that. So we'll explore the options for that and get back to you on that. And if you are okay to do that as a user for testing, then it might be available much faster, is what I can say.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Rohit.
Yeah, let's take a quick break.
We'll take a quick 5-minute break. So we're meant to have a partner presentation from Baringa doing next. We're just going to see if they've joined yet, so we can get them set up. So we reconvene back at 10:10, and we'll move on to the next section. Hi guys. So I'm going to hand over to Stuart. Remember just to kick off, we've got a Baringa presentation, so I'll hand over to you guys.
Brilliant, thank you. Morning, everybody. Thank you for inviting us along today. Nick and I are going to talk to you today about AI and risk management. Appreciate you've just had a little bit of that already, but hopefully we can give you a bit more of a contextual view from what we're seeing in the market. There'll be a little bit of education about what AI is, what it isn't, what's agentic AI, but I'll breeze through some of that because I think we're all on roughly the same page. So what do we want to look at today? So as I said, beyond the hype, what's AI going to do for us? What isn't it going to do? A bit of the core concepts, have a look at large language models and agentic AI, but then get into some of those use cases that we're actually seeing in the market, how Baringa are helping our clients navigate AI and the new world that we're accelerating into, and hopefully there'll be some time at the end for a discussion and questions. So who are we? So my name is Stuart Smith. I joined Baringa early in the year from one of the UK's biggest retail banks. I work at the London office, and for the last 12 to 15 years so, I've been a data scientist. I was actually a power trader at one point. I've worked in the bulk sector as well, but predominantly focusing on sort of data science and AI for the last 5 years or so. Nick, would you like to jump in?
Sure. Thank you, Stuart. Nick Mead. I am a colleague of Stuart's in the commodities and energy trading practice at Baringa, and also work alongside Andre, who is also on this call from Baringa as well. And my experience is very much on the trading side of the house, having been a commodity and energy trader for a few different hedge funds and asset managers throughout the last decade or so, and even holding a bit of a risk role for a period of time. But mainly my focus has been on kind of quantitative solutions and analytics. So I've spent quite a bit of time developing those in the various roles that I've had, and now in my capacity with Baringa, helping clients try to implement those same solutions that you often find in say, the financial services sector, and bringing that into the larger commodities houses and energy trading firms that are playing a little bit of catch up with some of those capabilities. And so very much looking forward to going through a lot of what we're seeing in the market from an AI perspective, and as Stuart had mentioned, what the hype is and what it isn't, because I think there is certainly a lot of noise out there about what these technologies actually can do and what they represent, and then of course we can lean on a few anecdotes as well from what we've seen with clients of ours trying to implement these solutions, some successfully, some not so successfully.
Thanks, Nick. So, why does it matter now? Obviously, I think we're all aware of the huge explosion in data. So whether that's market feeds, microsecond, millisecond, alternative data. So it's your news feeds, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, blog posts, IoT sensors, satellite imagery, you name it. Computing power has just increased exponentially, while also the cost to actually process data has fallen dramatically. We're looking at this because all of our clients are interested in it. They want to be utilizing the latest technology, and they're hearing a lot of noise from the news and whatever it may be as to they should be using it, but how can they? And really, it's perfect for our industry. Complex, data-rich, prediction-heavy domains, but also process burdensome. What we really want to get across is it's not magic. It's not going to solve all our problems. It's making us somewhat lazy using ChatGPT and Claude and whatever else to answer our emails for us. But really, human in the loop is always going to be around for, or at least the next decade or two, because really the specialized expertise comes down to understanding that AI is a suite of tools. It's not just one, and it's understanding which tool to apply in which situation to get the best, most efficient and effective outcome. At the end of the day, it's not plug and play. We still need quality data in to get quality output. We need strong guardrails, clear objectives, and that human expertise to make sure that it's augmenting human work rather than replacing it. So today's got to equip everyone with practical AI knowledge. Appreciate some of you may already have it, so I will whiz past some of this, but please ask any questions. I don't know if you with this, but terminology changes day to day. In fact, some of the terminology in here may well have changed. And also, understand what's possible in the risk management side of commodity and energy trading with AI, and what might not be. So very quickly, core concepts. Artificial, as I said, is that suite of tools, including machine learning, deep learning, and you'll hear later on large language models. Data science is more of the storytelling side of data analysts, predictions, so on and so forth. And data science has been using some of these algorithms for decades. I think one of the things we hear from clients is they're a bit skeptical of AI because it's so new. How do you know these algorithms work? How do you know it's going to do what it says on the tin? And actually, most of the mathematics was, invented back in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s. It's just until now we haven't had the processing power, the storage, and the data available to us in order to really take advantage of it. So that's quite a key understanding that we're hearing from our clients. Using large language models for unstructured data. So I think this has been somewhat of the paradigm shift in the industry. So, previously to use machine learning, data analytics, and to get a good output out, you've had to have a perfect underlying data lake or data warehouse where your data's in good order, everybody can access it, is accurate, so on and so forth. But large language models are now sort of bypassing that. We can extract value from these tools quicker because we don't actually have to have that perfect data lake. We can almost go to the source of truth itself, whether that source of truth is a contract or if you believe a social media post to be the source of truth, whatever it may be, we can extract that data from it and utilize it. So previous to the large language model, the ML approach, you have that heavy pre-processing of data to make sure your algorithm is as efficient and effective as possible, manual feature engineering, bespoke model building, labeling that data, so a human could actually have to go away and label that. And then the result is slow to develop and not particularly adaptable once made. Whereas now, there's minimal pre-processing required with large language models. It can actually understand semantically what those features are, what it needs. You can ask it to create those features. It's got versatility in prompting and few shot learning. So you can ask it zero shot, which means you don't give it any examples. You just say, please go away and do this. You can give it one example, which is one shot learning, or you can give it one example, which is one shot learning, or more effective it becomes. And as I said, that accelerated time to value, we're seeing clients now using these large language models to start processing data that they previously couldn't. So, the commodities and trade industry has been heavily analog up till now, all paper documents, whether it be contracts, invoices, settlements, nominations. Now we're able to utilize some of that data that's hidden away by using large language models to extract that data semantically. So why does this transform risk management? So we can quickly get to information or signal in vast quantities of unstructured data. So, whether that's Fed minutes, whether that's news posts, whether that's social media feeds, reports, you name it, we can quickly extract that information from that data compared to having a team of humans read through it and try to do that. We get deeper, faster due diligence, efficiently extracting that key information. can large language models help us extract the information quicker, it can somewhat understand what the text means better than a human. So we have examples whereby a single person might have to reread a paragraph 2 or 3 times to really understand the meaning behind it, whereas a large language model can quickly extract that and lay it out in almost a human readable form. Enhanced reporting, knowledge dissemination. So now not only can the large language models extract information, it can then generate reports off the back of it. And intuitive data exploration, insight generation. So that's, whether you have a data set or unstructured data, you can interrogate that data set as you like. And the unlocking dark data, that's almost your, that's your emails, that's the chats, the text messages, whatever it may be, that hold some information or signal in there that previously we couldn't access. Now, what is a large language model without an agent? This is the new hype or buzzword in the industry at the moment. If you imagine the large language model as a single model, text input in, text input out. Now, what you want to do, you want to utilize agentic AI in order to make that a flow. And so you have a chain of calls or processes. So it essentially accelerates that process so you can extract the value quicker. Now, agentic AI has multiple tools available to it. So whether that's use of a computer, use of a coding language, the internet, different databases, whether that's knowledge graphs or relationship databases, accesses to file stores, and the ability to actually use your computer. It has the availability to utilize some of these through what we call multi-context protocol. And so MCP, you may have seen, and essentially it can fire off calls to these different tools in order to use them. Now, we see we're going to define 2 different types of agentic AI: workflows and agents. A workflow is a chain of large language model calls with the availability to use a tool. So if you imagine very quickly an FTE article comes out and you want to process whereby you say, for every FTE article that's released, flag whether it's applicable to microcommodity industry. And you've potentially got to flag yes or no. Okay, if yes, summarize that article and then analyze the sentiment. So that's 3 large language model calls. You know exactly what the input is, you know exactly what the output is, and how much it's going to cost you. An agent, however, is autonomous. And so you ask it a question, you give it a task, but you don't fundamentally know how it's going to go about doing that task and what the output is going to be, because you rely on it to decide. And although this can have great benefits, it also comes with bigger risks, because 1, it can last a lot longer than you think it can. It tests the constraints that you give it. It doesn't necessarily come up with the output that you want it to have. And most importantly, it can cost a lot of money. It can ping a large language model or whatever tools you give it available many, many, many times before it gives you that task. So there's a key understanding to know when to use a workflow and when to use an agent. I'll pass over to Nick to go through some of the use cases and where we've seen both large language models and agentic AI used in the commodity space, especially the risk industry. Commodity space, especially the risk.
We have quite a few high-level use cases across risk and credit risk in a broad manner, and some of these have been implemented at clients we've worked with to varying degrees of success, as I mentioned earlier, where some are actually live in production, being used on a daily basis as part of BAU. Others tried 6 months, 9 months, maybe over a year to get it right, had issues, and then either sort of gave up or are still in the process of cracking on with it. But you'll see a bit of overlap compared to what was discussed before we joined the meeting. But overall, you really see the theme of just being able to take what was once a very kind of cumbersome process that was often riddled with errors due to just the amount of work that a human had to do to pull all sorts of data sources together, take a summarization of it, and then, of course, tie numbers across it and be able to then summarize it in a manner for either themselves, colleagues, executives, whatever the intended audience might have been. So this idea of intelligent alert narratives is something that there's a bank that we work with who are very much active in the clearing and brokering space for base metals transactions, and they have been able to implement a solution to keep on top of very close to limit breaches of not only their own activities, but for those that they also maintain a credit line on behalf of, and other sorts of collateral. And therefore, they are able to take in messages that are coming from other clearinghouses, from other brokers, and any other party that might have some sort of collateral or margin deposit with them, and have that email automatically processed and then turned into a set of actions for the relevant person on the desk to go and then take care of. And in some cases, some of them are quite imminent, where it's, you need to do this by the end of the day, or we are going to cease your trading abilities, or, hey, please take care of this at some point, over the next 3, 4, 5 business days, whatever the policy might have been. But just being able to actually have that processed automatically, have it go and understand what the full context of the message is, be able to then come up with a list of next steps. And now the person is very much removed from not only having to receive and process that message, but then actually decide what to do next. It's often very much, we have our orders now based off of this little tool that we have, and then let's go and take care of it. And then being able to tie it back to maybe more macro events or internal data that is available as well is something that this particular company is exploring as well, where they are giving the large language model access to a repository of news articles and also internal documents, but also, of course, the actual numbers themselves in a sort of data lake format, where the LLM can actually go ahead and then tie numbers back to some of the contextual, more qualitative side of things. And it's a tool that is providing some value, and so it's nice to see them coming along with that journey. The next one on a risk profile interpretation, you can think of it in a chatbot style format, where if somebody wants a way to interact with the various risk metrics that are being produced by the tool that the company is using, have that question understood, have the model be able to go away in the agentic style that Stuart just described, retrieve the data that it needs, come up with the summary, and be able to create a bit of a story and a narrative back, and have that all done within anywhere from, in some cases, 15 seconds up to maybe a few minutes, depending on the intensity of the data needing to be processed. And then now somebody who might not be the most technical or might not be the most in tune, I'm thinking, some more managerial and executive people that have quite a large mandate and tasks on their plate on a day-to-day basis, and don't necessarily have time to be in the weeds, have that sort of summarized at a clear level for them. And again, that's probably a role that is often filled by an analyst, or maybe a team of multiple analysts, to be able to just come up with some of these explanations on a daily basis. The one that I get quite excited about is the scenario analysis enhancement. And so, because sometimes the data that you might need to run a sort of what if story or simulation, it may not exist within the company. And in some cases, it may have just never actually happened historically before. But you want to be able to have a data set that might represent those market conditions. And so having an LLM be able to generate not only the data required, that in this case would be synthetic, that would represent that market situation, but then also be able to compare it to what is actually occurring in the market today, and be able to overlay some risk factors with that. And then again, the idea of being able to generate some executive summaries of that analysis for the individuals that maybe aren't a fan of the technical jargon. If you wouldn't mind going to the next slide, Stuart. Thank you. So I believe this one was actually up on the slide before we joined the meeting on Brady's side, and I think that this is one that is very similar to what I also described in the previous slide. That this is something that is very doable in my mind, and that we've seen it implemented to success within the industry, and that having what was again a very sort of arduous process that you had to have somebody monitoring maybe a special inbox or a direct line on the phone from the clearinghouse and the other side of the transaction that might be responsible for margin communications. That's all very much taken care of now in automated fashions, thanks to LLM and AI technologies, and really have made massive gains in the efficiency of being able to handle that as well. But also, some of these issues span across time zones, where you might have a desk in New York, and then you have a desk in London, and then a desk in Tokyo or Singapore or whatever. And in many cases, the passover of the book can oftentimes come with it, analytics and summaries that need to be written out. And there are people that spend hours doing that, whereas now can be done in a matter of minutes, thanks to LLMs and AI technology, the ability to make it multilingual as well. I know somebody on the call was asking about that sort of capability when we had first joined. And so that is something that LLMs are quite shrewd with, and being able, to understand language differences and make the translations as needed, but also be able to, create the outputs in the necessary language of the intended audience as well. And another one we find interesting too is sometimes if there is a dispute in process as part of the details of a trade, or maybe in the physical commodity world, the delivery aspect of it and the settlement that goes along with that, being able to have those communications a bit more automated as well through the processing of the various reports and invoices and documents that come along with that. And then well, to be updated and or monitored, have that change languages or summarize quickly as needed. So it's an exciting time, I think, across those use cases. And I will kick it back to Stuart for these ones of some additional bits that we're seeing in the market in terms of clients going after and thinking about.
Thanks, Dan. Yeah, so from a counterparty assessment intelligence piece, I think there's certain clients that are doing this, at least almost using ChatGPT for it already. It's not necessarily in a process flow, but we can read these financial statements and generate the relevant risk summaries now very quickly. And these previous 110, 200-page reports that, quite frankly, you just haven't got the ability to read all the way through, we can quickly summarize or extract key parts of them that are important to us. When I, in my previous role, at one of the UK's largest banking groups, we were doing this. So with our clients, not only were we monitoring their sort of counterparty credit limit using management information, annual reports, so on and so forth, we were looking at news sources, we were looking at in-depth financial statements, so where our prompts were particular to the risk that we were looking for, rather than just summarize this document. It was picking out individual parts. what's happening with the cash flow statement this year, what are the director dealings, so on and so forth. Really trying to pull it apart to gain that extra bit of insight. Assessment report generation. So we can now use generative AI to build out these reports and tailored to the relevant stakeholders that want to be reading them. We can generate new risk scoring models alongside of that. So not only do we have the sort of structured data risk score, we can have an unstructured data risk score. We can build sort of an ensemble method of pulling those together to give us a better risk score. External data integration. So we're seeing a lot of want or needs to understand social media, whether that be President Trump's social media that can move markets very quickly, or more of a holistic view. So that's like LinkedIn, it's blog posts, it's understanding key either clients or clients, what's happening to them in the wider industry, and can we get closer to them? So an example might be, and again, this comes to like the multilingual fact. If your client relies heavily on assets in Poland or perhaps Ukraine, typically it's the local news sources that know the problems first. So perhaps it's a refinery and it's gone down for unscheduled maintenance. Who's going to know first? It's going to be the local news. Or perhaps a port wall has fallen over somewhere in the world and it hasn't yet been reported on Bloomberg. It's those hyper-localized news feeds in different languages that we can now utilize with large language models to give us that information quickly and early so we can do something about it. Next one, pre-deal intelligence from a trading support side. So, can we create instant summaries of counterparty status, understand what their limits are, dynamic limits compared to on what that news is coming in, and that risk-adjusted price recommendations. We've actually built a proof of concept or demo to show some of this. Limit utilization reporting, so there's dynamic dashboards with large language summaries, so not only just showing the charts, but being able to explain them quickly. Appreciate that some of us have paid money to actually be able to understand those charts already, but it always helps having an explanation below it. So that not many people look at, but are there sat in the background to help us understand that information, but being able to process them quickly to give us an understanding of like why was a trade approved, rejected, why was it made in the first place. You can even look at things like what was the trader's view on the market, if they're noting it down in a notebook or on a note journal taking system. We can start to process that information and gain signal from it. Finally, from an advanced integration capabilities view, conversational risk analytics. I think we're seeing this requirement and need from a lot of clients. It's like we've got our CTRM or we've got a lot of data. We want to query it. We want to understand under the hood what is going on. So, and we want to be able to ask free test questions of it. So, for example, why is my exposure to German power markets what is my exposure to German power markets if gas prices spike 20%? Now that agents or agentic AI can use both Python code, it can go and pull the relevant data from your data sources. It can go pull external data, research papers, whatever it may be, to give you a view on what would happen. So yeah, that's almost the scenario analysis as well. Again, we have a Baringa demo that we've created over a synthetic CTRM where we ask some of these questions and pull back what would be actual analysis from a large language model as to how it could help both your risk management team, your C-suite, your traders to understand what is going on with your total portfolio view. Automating reporting suites, again, whether that's creating regulatory reports, whether it's producing board presentations off the back of all that data and the external news, things are just getting faster, more efficient, and we don't need huge teams of people to do it. And building on the scenario analysis piece that Nick mentioned, is creating not only the what if stories that we can think of, it's asking the large language model, like, what do you think could happen? Like, what's the domino effects that could happen that we haven't thought about? So there's niche, complex, hidden risks. And then us being able to utilize either those risks that we have data for, creating the data synthetically for it, and being able to run those Monte Carlo simulations in business terms. Those are the sort of use cases we're hearing about, we're seeing in the market, and Brigger sort of work across the commodities energy trading space, both from front office, middle office, back office, risk management, operations, whatever it may be. And we're sort of helping build out that AI capability across our clients through a multitude of different ways. We've got strategic workshops, the use case discovery and prioritization. So, a key part of this is, okay, the use cases on screen, some of them are fantastic, some of them less so. Some of them more valuable than others, but some of them are also more feasible. Now, where do we put them in like a heat map? If you imagine a heat map, so you've got value versus feasibility, which ones do we want to, what are the low-hanging fruit? Which ones what we need to go after because they've got the most value, so on and so forth. We produced the actionable AI roadmaps. So, on your journey from, fundamentally, you're still going to have to get your structured data in a fit and proper warehouse for you to access it. But then how do you start building that in structured data in? Where do you host it? What sort of database do you hold it in? Is it knowledge graphs? Is it vector databases? So on and so forth. And then, what models are you going to use? What technology are you going to use? All of this you want to build in an agnostic way because these models are just iteratively getting better and better and better. So, if you focus very nichely on one model now, in 6 months' time, another model could almost undo all of that good work that you've done because it's just so much better than the model you're using. Proof of concepts demos, we've mentioned a couple here, and there's a few dotted around this page. So, we've got things like showing how you can extract information from contracts, whether it's optionality or penalties that perhaps can't be stored in CTRMs. We've got the performance commentary and analytics in that bottom left-hand corner. So that's what we talk about, the free text querying over a synthetic CTRM. The commodities pre-trade risk analyzer. So that's, a trader may have a deal that they want to enter into. They've got all the details, but typically they have to go through and check off all the necessary risk checks. So that, is the counterparty on the sanctions list? Do we have enough room under the counterparty credit limit? Is there credit insurance in place? Is the marine insurance in place? Credit limit. Is there credit insurance in place? Is the marine insurance in place? Your agent has access to those databases. Can we use almost the information we've gathered through email, free text like instant messaging, like Teams messages, or even voice on a recorded line, process that information, and even push it straight into the CTRM from there. Bottom right-hand corner here is a list of 30 curated use cases that we think are very valuable to the commodities industry, and we've been promoting that quite recently. So you've got throughout the trade lifecycle, pre-trade, deal execution, operations, risk, compliance, and settlements. We help design the solution architecture with your teams, and if so be it, we can also do the end-to-end delivery and implementation support. So bring us sort of both Nick, Andre, and myself, and more of the expertise on the specific commodities and energy trading side of things. But we've also got data analytics capabilities, tooling, implementation, you name it, we've got it. So by all means, if you want to hear more, please reach out. But more than happy to answer questions or hear your thoughts on the industry.
Thank you. I have I don't know if it's a question for you or for the guys in the London office. I just think this point about margin calls and being able to extract the information from a margin call into a structured format and sort of process it in some ways. It sounds really interesting. Rohit, I don't know if that has been on your list of potential, topics, or like you said, low hanging fruits. Because I mean, a lot of our clients are sending, I don't know, total of several hundred, if not 1,000 margin calls every week. And if they could somehow just have a system, run through all these emails, pick up the main details, put them into CRisk, so the system could sort of pick it up from there. That just sounds to me like a really, really good improvement.
Yes, Matt, I think that is something that we have in our pipeline. So we are planning to build kind of an agentic pipeline around that, because then it can read the user's email, process the incoming margin calls, and then the AI agent can send out the discrepancies or the findings and the next suggestions based on that. So definitely that is one of our use case that we're looking.
Because I know some clients have been suggesting in the past to establish some sort of structured platform, like we heard in the beginning of this session, like use a meta language or something that can enable us to communicate between the margining partners. But if you can just as easily read an email with a PDF file and interpret it and sort of plug it into a process, that's another way of doing it.
Yep. I think that's definitely doable.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions here in the room? Anyone had any experience with use of AI in their daily credit-related work? Not yet.
We have a lot of AI interface within the company. Mm-hmm. For example, I'm using it to reading the international reports, like translating languages that I don't understand, Korean or Taiwanese. Yeah.
Is it only for the translation then, or is it also to extract highlights from the financial statements?
Also to get because it's about documents, also to get the financials, so that it picks up the correct figures for me to later use in my analysis.
Yeah.
And what are you using, Copilot from Microsoft, or?
There's sort of the ChatGPT, but it's a local instance. So it's not sent out to the ChatGPT cloud. Right? Somehow isolated. I don't know the details, the IT details, but sort of in a secret environment.
Is it a Microsoft solution, or did you buy another application for that?
I don't know the details, but it is sort of ChatGPT based, as far as I know.
So, yeah, I think that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so I was just going to say, I think that's an interesting point that you raised there, which we kind of deliberately didn't cover too much on, say, the security aspects of some of this, because you'd probably need an entire day workshop, and I don't think anybody wants to hear us talk for 9 hours about how all these things need to be secured and locked down. But the idea of using a, say, ChatGPT model that might be exposing your proprietary, sensitive, confidential data, to its own systems and servers is certainly something that comes up a lot in the conversations we have with clients. And so therefore the alternatives are, as you mentioned, a sort of a private, more local instance of it that is ring fenced on your company's own computing systems, and therefore you're just kind of licensing the code base from the likes of, say, ChatGPT and OpenAI or Anthropic and Claude or Google. So that's very much a conversation that needs to be had at some point in this process and worked out internally. Is, do we go with a more secure local instance that maybe we can fine tune, but we don't receive the updates and the patches that might come from the main alpha version that the vendor provides? And so it's oftentimes, that conversation where these initiatives really hit a bit of a speed hump, let's say, around how much and how willing are we to expose our own data and documents to the likes of ChatGPT and Claude.
So another question from my side is in the different projects you have seen and worked on up to now. I'm just thinking how reliable how reliable is it if you ask AI to rate a company? And just in our previous session, Rohit was presenting us with an example where he uploaded a specific, let's say, Moody's model and then a financial statement, and then it was, in my mind, pretty reliable compared to if you just ask and it goes out, I don't know, to scan the internet and find 10 different rating models and just put something together. So eventually I'm thinking, can I even trust the result of this? Because you get you ask a question and depending on the context, you get something back. But would it be the same as if I had really done a thorough analysis of this counterparty and got a rating out of that, which in my mind, I would know exactly the process that it had gone through. I don't know what the AI engine has picked up and where it comes from and why it's a AA rated company now. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that does. The one thing that these models have gotten a lot better about, and they've gotten better quickly, is the ability to provide a sort of audit trail or logging trail of what it's actually done to come up with the conclusion that it has. And in some cases, that can be in the form of citations that it's providing. So it is providing the exact link to the website where the financial statement came from, or if it extracted something from a newspaper article or an academic study, whatever the source might be. They are now providing citations that can allow you to pretty much quickly verify the main output and conclusion, and if they're figure related as well, being able to sort of eyeball those quite quickly. And in the cases where it's actually kind of gone off and done its own bit of analysis and come up with, say, some sort of math-based result, it's often producing or you can have it produce the stack trace, so to speak, of that. So the Python code that it's written, or the Java code, or C++ code is written to then go and look through a spreadsheet or look through a database. It's all there to follow along. And of course, these systems, do make mistakes and do get it wrong. And so where they have come a long way, and the developers of these solutions, is making sure that there is a sort of auditable path occurred from the model. And then you can kind of build processes around that to maybe meet internal validation policies or some other internal policy around, turning over workflow to agentic solutions. And so I think because of that, it's become a lot more easier than even it was a year or two ago to understand what the model, what the LLM actually went and did, and where it got its information from, and what it did with that information, most importantly, and especially in the maths-based exercises.
Ultimately, it comes down to our earlier point of AI is just a tool that you should be using to augment your role rather than just somewhat replacing it. You can ask ChatGPT to go and score all these companies, but ultimately the expertise comes down to what you're prompting it to do, what you actually asking to do, and being able to give it the context and the instructions in a really well and detailed manner, so that you can utilize that information as you see fit. You could ask ChatGPT to write you an iPhone app in one sentence, but it's not going to be as good as you break down every single part of that iPhone app and what each bit needs to do, it's chalk and cheese. So you need to think of that in your roles today. Like, don't ask a very vague question. Be very detailed. Give it the context. Give it a role. Give it really detailed instructions, and you get far better output.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the domain expertise of, like the people on this call really comes into play, because it's that experience and years of knowledge that can help the developers that are building these solutions make sure that the prompts that are structured to feed into the workflows that the models are using is as comprehensive as possible, and that what you'll find is when you give it some very specific instructions and very comprehensive set of information that is domain specific, whatever that might be, in the trading life cycle, that it goes away and it comes back with some very reasonable stuff, versus if you just ask it, a very broad, high level question. And so it's okay to get into the weeds with this technology, because it's only going to help keep it on the right path even more. And so that's where I think the notion that these technologies are very much going to be an augmentation and a supplementation rather than a replacement for quite a long time, because that expertise and domain knowledge is still very much going to need to come from the people that have been doing that job or doing that role for all these years and know it best. And it is just a way to, I think, turbocharge a lot of the roles that humans are currently doing rather than replace.
Good. Any other questions?
I have a question. So, if you see in our daily life on the consumer technology side or on our online, like the social media side, we can see that the AI is adapting very fast. So in the last 1 year, it has gone into every corner, like whether it is your mobile phones or the websites that you use. Even Google now comes up with kind of a chatbot answer at the top of it. So, and everything, wherever you see there is AI. So how is the energy trading market adapting to this? How fast is it moving? How fast is it catching up to this trend? And is it very aggressive or is it in a very moderate pace that's going in?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So we see a lot of our clients. I would say they're on two ends of the spectrum. Some have completely adopted this and are going in on funding proof of concepts or prototypes to explore this technology and see if it will provide value to any of the front, middle, back office, et cetera, and taking a view at that point on, do we need to put a longer term investment plan in place, versus some we see, I think, are just happy and content to sit on the sidelines because it's just such a new world, and are maybe bogged down by just kind of internal culture of being a bit more conservative and not wanting to kind of mess up the status quo, and therefore they don't seem to necessarily want to try and experiment with these sorts of technologies. And then we have a few in the middle, but they tend to be on either ends of the spectrum, and they're looking at it. Some companies are looking at it only from a front office perspective. Some are looking at it from a middle and back office perspective, given that that's where a lot of the more cumbersome tasks might lie, from document analysis perspective, or being able to process and enter all sorts of information manually that's coming from many different sources and many different systems within the company itself. And so that is varied as well, just depending on where they see the value. I think as we all know sometimes the middle and back office functions aren't always seen as top line additive functions, so to speak, rightly or wrongly. So that very much up to the leadership team, and some are dabbling in enabling Microsoft Copilot, within their Microsoft landscape, and that's kind of their entry point, and seeing, okay, well, now that I have the ability to interact with Word documents and PowerPoint presentations and Excel workbooks and let Copilot do some things for me, whether it's actually do work for me from writing out some Excel formulas or writing out paragraphs or bullet points, or from an analysis perspective, tell me what this means or tell me what's going on over here. That is an entry point that I think is quite reasonable, just to see what that sort of adoption and uptake and overall sentiment is like. And I think overall, though, the technology is changing so fast, and that I understand why some companies are a little more hesitant than others, and the ones that I think are willing to at least experiment with it are going to get the most out, because if they can say they've tried it and it just didn't work for whatever those reasons might be, then at least they can sort of move on peacefully, knowing that, rather than not necessarily ever giving it a shot and happy to stay in the old world per se.
Yeah, it can also be that paralysis through choice. There's so many things you can go after. Several of our clients come to us just like, it seems quite basic, but look, can you just help us work out what are our top 3 use cases to go after, to which we can then experiment with. At the moment, we've got the option of 25, and we just sort of frozen. We can't agree between ourselves what's priority, what the value is. Come in and help us decide. So that's not unusual.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. It was really useful. Thank you, Stuart, Nick, Andre, for joining. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Bye-bye.
With credit optimization, triangulation, trying to optimize your credit risk by buying from one and selling to another, rather than using the traditional credit tools. And why is that? It's good to have an alternative. If you take some of the risk mitigation tools we all know about, you can, of course, when you reach the limit, you can stop trading with the counterparty, but you're obviously interested in creating a profit, and your traders want to have a free space for trading and not being limited. So it's not a desirable choice. You can have bank guarantees, of course. It's another alternative. It's usually a bit expensive, and it's not always possible to have a bank guarantee if the counterparty is in a special situation. Margining is a very known tool as well. It's also known that it introduces liquidity risk, and it requires that you have a team and a procedure in place to handle it, of course. And then you have insurance, which I also see some companies use. It was quite popular some years ago, and with some companies, but it's not really taking off. And I think it's because they tend to cover only settlement risk or partially mark to market, and it's a bit difficult to see what it covers, and expensive again. Credit default swaps, again, not so used in this industry. So what else is there? We have set up a tool called the compression tool, actually several years ago in CRisk. I don't know if any of you actually use it, but it enables you to offset buys on the same grid market with the same counterparty, because the traders just tend to sell and buy, and sometimes even on the same month with the same counterparty, the same product. several times, hundreds of deals I've seen sometimes. And that blows up your number of trades. And thereby, if you are looking into the EMIR regulation, it also makes it a bit more complex and risky. So they want to reduce the number of trades by having us look into what can be compressed. Unfortunately, I don't have that tool installed or enabled on my PC, but I do have a screenshot from the user guide for those who don't know about it. So it's basically under exposure, compression overview, and you have this list. So this would tell you how many deals we have and how many of those can be compressed, meaning it's a buy and sell that you could basically collapse the two positions and settle the mark-to-market, get them out of the books. If your traders on both sides agree to it, it's usually a complication of this. The tool actually lets you open up a form that shows every single match, buy and sell, and you can have 2 buys matching 1 sell, or even like 10 or 15 with different volumes that altogether match. So it's quite a complex algorithm behind it. And then you can select which positions, and then you can select which offset with the counterparty, and you can also see what the effect of the compression is in terms of settlement risk reducing, especially if your counterparty is in a non-netting jurisdiction, because then obviously the moment you have a buy position that you cannot offset against a sell position, you have a settlement risk. But if you can collapse the two into a zero position and get them out of the books, you get rid of that risk. So it's interesting in that sense. So that's what it illustrates here. The blue is supposed to be after the compression. The exposure is reduced, as you can see. Okay, so that's one option. It's basically bilateral. You reduce your risk by offsetting some buys and sells with a counterparty. And obviously, here we have the tools to see where you can actually do this and what the effect would be. If there's a full netting position, or in many other situations, it's not going to bring you much other than reduce the number of trades. But if the counterparty is a non-netting counterparty, then it's super efficient. Another possibility is what we call triangulation. So that's where you find two parties where you can sort of move your position around in a triangle. So if you have a big sell position with one and a big buy position with the other, then you try to, reverse the circle and say, then I buy from you and I sell to you. But then you need to convince the two other parties to do the reverse transaction among themselves, which is not always that easy. But if you can, then you can really reduce your risk a lot, and sometimes even accomplish a risk reduction on two parties. Let me show you an example. So here I have, and these names are just some random names from the industry I picked up, nothing specific about why. I just think you all recognize the names, so it makes it sometimes easier to understand the example. Let's say we have a 20 million limit on two counterparties. On one of them, we have 20 million positive exposure, and the other one is negative. So that means we are 100% utilized our limit on Mercury. We cannot trade with them anymore, but don't want to. There's no CSA in place, so that's it. We can stop trading, or we can look into other risk mitigations. At the same time, we have a negative position with Centrica. That means on this future PFE date, July 25th, which I chose as an example, we will have margin call from Centrica. So we need to pay 20 million to cover this risk. Let's say the threshold is 0. And we will max our utilization with Mercury, so we cannot trade with them anymore. It's not the perfect situation. So what can we do about that? So if it all works out and we can do a triangle trade here, we will then buy from Mercury. So we get a 0 position there. We will sell to Centrica, and then we would ask them to sort of move the position on between themselves. If they would agree to that, then we will not have to pay 20 million in collateral to Centrica, which is good for our liquidity. And we will have a 0 utilization on Mercury. So suddenly we can just trade full speed again. Now, this is, of course, an optimal example, and it's far from the reality usually. And why is that? That's because we have some challenges. First of all, how do we identify a good opportunity for triangulation? We would need to go into the system and look for situations that would work well. Let's say we want to reduce TTF gas exposure on one counterparty, then we need to find another one that also trades gas exposure where it doesn't have a negative impact on our exposure with them, because then you just move the risk from one to another, which can sometimes also work out. Then as you think, you reduce your future position on or future risk with a counterparty, you may actually increase it, because if I buy from a counterparty that has a lot of buy already, then if you use the add-ons, it's going to push the add-ons up even in the near future too, which can actually increase the exposure, although you think you reduce it. So you may end up having to do a pre-deal check to just double check in the system if this can actually work out. And you may end up having to do it many times with different counterparties and different times and so on. It's quite time consuming. And another problem with the triangulation is we don't know the relationship between our two counterparties. I mean, they may not be in a situation where they even trade. I mean, you know, the active counterparties, they all deal with each other, but they may have a situation where one is also breaching their limits to the other one, or it just doesn't make sense for one of the parties to make a reverse transaction. So that makes it a bit tricky for us. It's not enough to just approach one party to do a triangulation. You might need to contact a couple or several parties to see if it works out for anyone. So that's the third problem. That's the communication, because you need to keep track of these opportunities and who have you contacted and what do they come back with. It's kind of like with margining, where you send out something and then you get a response back and you hope it all works out. As an alternative, you can send a list of opportunities to a broker. We have Griffin, Congo, and you probably know some other names. And then you send a list of, let's say, with this counterparty, Mercuria, I'm happy to buy this amount for the next 3 months and this amount in the following months, or something like that. And of course, that's where if you have a system that can do that, you can pull it out of the system and just plug it into their platforms and then see who can make a match here. Even when you've done the match, you still need to contact and negotiate and make sure that all the practicalities are falling into place. So just to show the manual way of doing triangulation, I would say if I have a counterparty here, let's take an example. The limit you can see 96%. What can I do? I click here and I now analyze the exposures. So what I can see from this pie chart is gas TTF takes up quite a lot of the current exposure. And if I look at this page here, you can see TTF negative 3 million. So it's sell, and it's not a surprise because you can see sort of a sell profile down here. But it's a mix of different gas positions, and it's also under different agreements, and some are not even under agreement at all. And some of this position here can be very short term, or it can be long term. So I mean, in the pursuit to reduce the risk at this very point in time, I would need to analyze a bit further where do the positions actually go in. That's where I can open this board called positions per month. And here we have a breakdown. It's not down to up level, it's down to agreement level. So when it says EFIT gas megawatt hours here, it can be a mix of TTF and egg or other hubs. But at least here there's a separate MVP letter, so all the MVP trades are in here. So that's another way to see the positions and the monthly breakdown. I can also right-click here and say, give me the calculation of this future point in time, which should show me a lot of ETF trades. Click open. Okay, so what you can see is as of a future date. Now the demo is from February, it's from eWorld. But then I look into the future to the 18th of March, where it says TTF all the way down here, okay, and a lot of settlement risk. Okay, so I've reached a point now where I can see there's a lot of settlement risk on a future date. What can I do to reduce that? I can, of course, sell, and because it's under an EFIT agreement with a German counterparty. So then, just to make it a bit quicker, I did a pre-deal checker prepared here already. I buy some amount here of megawatts, and I click to see what will then be the effect of that. So that's good. It reduced our risk at this point where it's highest. Not dramatically, but at least down to 87%, which let's just say that's what we need. So we can go ahead. Now, next step is, of course, who would be the other company to approach? Because now we know we want to buy some TTF gas. By the way, we think, okay, this had a little bit of effect. What if I just go crazy and buy a lot? Would that help? And I suspect it won't. Well, it did actually help a lot, but it didn't reduce it to zero because we had some other positions. So let's just stay with the 200. And then next challenge is, so who should I sell it to? And that requires that you sort of go into the system and find some counterparties that have maybe an EFIT gas agreement and that allow TTF, which I guess they mostly do anyway. And then where it's a favorable position where you can sort of offload your gas. So I'll just step a bit further here. Now, I did a query simply in the system to sort of shortcut this track. And I found in my demo, BP gas as a huge position in TTF. So I figured, let's try and sell to BP. So try it out in the pre-deal checker. What will happen if we sell to them? Okay. Same volume, same time period, same hub. Turns out it has a pretty limited effect on their exposure, so I'm maybe happy with this. I'm selling a lot of gas, and it only adds 1% to the utilization here. So that's great. And why is that? That's because the max PFE point is here, whereas my gas deal is affecting this part of the curve, which is lower than the max PFE anyway. So I'm just adding some exposure sometime out in the future. Let's hope that's fine. Good. So far, so good. Now I have two parties, Safer and BP, and I'd like to send them a notification and ask, are you interested in a triangulation? So that's next. So you can send an email or you can call them or whatever. It would be really nice if the system would sort of generate just like a margin call, a breakdown, and a nice notification. That's what I'm coming to. You can hear. So that's next. So the next challenge is, as I mentioned before, we don't know the situation between these two partners. So all we can do is approach them and say, what do you think of this? And hope they are willing and interested in helping out, given that we will do the same next time such a thing happens. And again, another way of doing this would be to send a list to a broker and have them sort of establish the match. Now, this brings me to the point I'm trying to get to here, where we want to support all this in a more automated way in CRisk. And instead of you having to scan through some selected trial and error approaches in the pre-deal check or whichever tool you use in CRisk, let's say the system can just run through a lot of different situations, pick up, where you have a high utilization, figure out what positions can I sell or buy so that I reduce efficiently my exposure, and then figure out what other parties would I then have to approach so that I can establish a triangle. This is something we can, of course, automate somehow. And when it comes to the imperfect information point I had here, of course, CRisk cannot tell you what the situation is between the two other parties, but we would be able to help, maybe, keep track of which parties are dealing with what and what is the history of triangulations. And we can also see, of course, if it's a big trading counterparty, we can list those that have EFED agreements and say it's most likely those that are also active between the two other partners. And of course, as a third option, we can look at the broker lists, or we can send the data to the brokers. So that's where right now, as a first initiative, we're looking into sending these opportunities to brokers or a selected broker, and then sort of build on top of that. So this is where I'd like to hear your experience and inputs for this initiative. Is it even relevant? Is it something you do a lot? Are you using brokers? I know you've responded to some questions that came out along with the invitation, so I know some of the answers, but maybe if anyone around the table want to do that, Brady. That's a silence. Is that a no, we don't use it, or is it
very rarely, and very, let's say, you described the manual process, and it's usually triggered by counterparties, which we contact with. We're rarely the ones initiating the whole. So we do get some requests from time to time, and then we do the process. We run through that manually, and we sometimes identify opportunities which are good on all sides and proceed, but we don't really initiate it also because it's process.
Yeah, I don't think you do that that often unless you have sort of system support telling you what to do at least. And yeah.
We do it, I think, one thing on the gas. It's not me, it's my colleague. The experience is a lot of it.
Yeah.
Sometimes the result, because we use it, the result is not that obvious, because sometimes you can find when we want to reduce very little, it requires that all in the circles. That was not particular company. But
but it was more like isolated months. Large volumes, but just isolated months. So it was not changing that much.
No.
Like just like here, when I do a gas deal in 1 month, it doesn't change the exposure because it's not that month that has the problem really, and that's what you sometimes run into.
And I think also the biggest hurdle is actually doing it for our traders. We both cannot credit agreements, but for them it's more like, because the only thing obviously they see is that you associate it with actually the transaction. So for them it's more like, oh, it's great, it's yours, but actually, is it really us?
Yeah.
And maybe adding to that, because we discussed that with the ML team recently, and the question was the same: is it a credit's responsibility or the trader's responsibility? You'll identify it as a risk mitigating technique, yes, but it can also be a way to drive the business for the traders. And if we're sitting in the middle, then I would want to probably charge a fee for that service, just like that tends to make a great impact to the traders. So, like you said, it's a lot of effort. So we probably thought a dedicated role or some maybe an intermediary team, like a liquidity management team, can lend the responsibility. Strictly from a credit perspective, probably with the exception of 22 when gas prices went really high, I don't think triangulation was something else for us.
I was also maybe to add, I think those initiatives from Griffin and Congo were a bit too late. They were not available during the energy crunch and later developed.
Yeah.
Because there were others trying to learn or platforms already. I mean, this has been, I remember, for a very long time.
Yeah, yes, indeed. As I mentioned, yeah. And it's always when there's a crisis, then it becomes relevant again.
Yeah, we had a lot of requests for ERPs. So also extend the exchange position to the whole thing, then it can get really interesting.
Okay. But is there anyone else using Griffin or Congo or any of these services?
Just a comment. I hear that in this audience there are not that many that are active on triangulation, but there are people out there that are using it, both through brokers and Congo. Just for your information, we also have Danske Commodities, which is a subsidiary of Equinor, and they are using it and going to be part of the implementation. Of course, for us, as Denby said, it's not really something that we are considering on a daily basis, only when you see, like we had a couple of years ago, spiking prices. And being a net seller, we are not concerned about 1 or 2, 3 million. It's more 10, 100 million that we want to lay off all of a sudden. So, yeah, it's an issue too. But of course, a tool will make it easier, but then how much will it be used?
Yeah. That's the balance, of course. Because if you had the tool, it wouldn't take a lot of effort to click on a button and have it send out some suggestions to some counterparts or upload a list to Griffin or Congo. But even after having done that sort of analysis, you would still have to perform the actual reverse trades. That would be outside CRisk, of course. Okay.
Good. Thank you, Lars. We've got one more session left, and this is really an open forum section just for more of a discussion around, the future of the product. Flip to the slides. Your experiences with support, how you feel as though you are supported as a customer, and release process, what we can do better. So I'm going to hand over to the team in London who are going to kind of drive the next couple of slides. Praneetha, I'll hand over to you on the kind of future plans first, and then Ian, you can take the next one.
Hi, David. So we have already seen what we are currently like some of the.
Can you move closer to the microphone?
Okay, try.
Is it better now?
Oh yeah, much better.
Okay, sorry. So we have already seen what we are currently working on, some of the features and the hosting models and AI and things like that. So the first section, what you can see here, strengthening the foundation, is mostly on what you can expect in 2026.1 release. And we have seen that along with the previous session of the release. On that, what we are planning is optimization for compatibility with SQL Server 2025, which is the latest version available, and transition to Azure native services, integration of AI to assist credit analysts. We have seen that in Rohit's slide in detail, and built-in support for ISDA SIM models. So these are the things which are currently in our roadmap, and anything else, if you think will be useful from your experiences, please raise a Jira or get back to us. We will look into those as well. And in future, we want to position CRisk as a cloud-first AI-enabled CRisk platform and multi-tenanted SaaS platform. And any market changes we are closely watching, and we'll try to include them as and when it comes up. Yeah, that's what we are looking at.
Thanks, Praneetha.
Hi. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Great. Okay, so this section is just for best thing is the last section of the day. So what I wanted to do is just talk to you guys and get some feedback from both you guys in the room and anyone online as well, to go through your experience in the last year or so, firstly with the release process, and then secondly with anything we do with monthly calls that we have with the support team or services or sales, and then any other suggestions or how you feel we could any suggestions that we could improve our services as such to make your experience better. So firstly, going on to the release experience, the understanding in the last year or so is that the schedule is monthly for most of our clients. And I say most, there's a few exceptions. And some of the feedback we've had over that time is monthly may be too often, or monthly is good. So I just wanted to ask if anyone's got any sort of questions on your end, what you feel, how it goes. Is the process smooth when we send you the release? And do you have enough information about that release, or would you like more information? And what we can do to make it easier for you guys? So I don't know if anyone's willing to start.
A question, is this releases related to bug fixing and these kind of things? Oh, yeah. So,
Yes.
Maybe I can give a few comments from the Equinor side. I know we have been working on a backlog for a while. Now we also have the scoring modeling, so I'm fully updated on that, but I guess there are a few things still outstanding. But at some point, I think it was late last year or autumn last year, there was some restriction that we only could get 2 maybe fixes monthly. Is there anything now that restricts us from getting the fixes that we need on a monthly basis?
Moving to the what you have to do is to upgrade it to 2025.1. So once you have upgraded to 2025.1, then you will be able to access our monthly release.
And I think second point in this question was if there are some bugs reported that require code fixes from, let's say, Equinor, will they be included in the following month's release, or what will be sort of the expectation going forward? Because there might have been sort of a period of time where it took a bit longer. I think that's the question.
So on that one, that would just come down to when we look at the tickets to see what we will put in to that release, and the priority, we'll look at the priority, and then we'll update the customers as to what versioning we may plan to get their fixes in. Granted that not every version will have fixes per customer. Obviously, that's a good thing in terms of that there isn't as many issues out there. But what we do is we listen to customers that would like to take the next release. That's what we want to move forward to. So we can analyze, if customer A only wants to release every 3 months, we may plan their fixes, within that 3-month cycle. Whereas if customers are looking at every month, we want to sort of say, okay, they will take this release, they will install this release. So therefore, there's more chance of there's more value for us getting that fix in that particular release, because they would move it forward. Whereas other customers have suggested, there's too many releases going out. It would allow us to, if we sort of work with you guys to plan a schedule through the year, it will allow us to plan what to get in each release to make it more usable for the people that are using those releases, or more valuable, as it were. Does that make sense?
Yeah, if we can be better on the planning and expectations, that would improve it definitely.
Just another point on this as well. At the back end of last year, where we were quite close to UAT for scoring, there was only limited areas we could actually work on the system until it was pushed into production. So now it's in production, that opens up all of the tickets again to go into the sprint. So we're in a better place in that side of things.
And related to the information you receive with release, has anyone got any comments or suggestions?
This has been a big sticking point for a lot of customers compared to last year's release. We've kind of worked out more detail on the annual release, but also on the monthlies as well. So there's more detail in there. More options offered to have demos for any releases as well, to make sure it's clear where it impacts the system. So it'd be good to know how that's looking this year compared to last year. Is more details needed? What we do on the notes.
So carry on. Sorry, was that a question for us? Sorry, we struggled to hear that.
It was just Rob giving a monologue.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Rob. Appreciate that.
So the response is I'm happy. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So I mean, one thing we will what we'll do at some of these support meetings we have is to suggest a schedule going forward about releases, and do you plan? are you on the current? Are you on the latest version? Are you testing the latest version? How many versions behind are you? So we can then, because that will allow us to plan our, as I mentioned earlier, planning what we're going to get in the next release. Because obviously we'd like to get everything in a release, but if you're a few releases behind and you don't plan to take the next release, then we'll probably prioritize some of the customers' work who will take that release, if that makes sense. So there's advantages from both parties by giving this information to us. I understand also that on a monthly, usually most months, most customers get a call, a support call, which Jibin and Rob attend. And I just wanted to sort of ask on that, do you guys find value in that? Do you guys find the information provided ahead of the call enough? Or what sort of things would you like to be talking about on those monthly meetings?
Is everybody here on those?
So on that, we have a bi-weekly call with Jibin and Prabhu. Just me, Jibin and Prabhu, to go through the open backlog and discuss which of the tickets might be on the next monthly release.
Mm-hmm.
This is happening on bi-weekly basis.
Now works okay. You feel
yeah, sure. I mean,
right.
I would still love to have a bit more velocity on when the tickets are finally in the sprint, to be honest. And also, I would prefer to have more transparent, or not like transparency, yes, but also like I would want to have like a fixed date every month when I know, okay, this is the release date by when the monthly release will be installed on that environment.
Mm-hmm.
Because right now it's always like talking back and forth. Okay, when can we do it? When can we install it? Ideally, I would want to have like planned a year ahead. Okay, every 15th of every month we will have a new monthly release in that environment. So that I know I can plan my activities around that.
Yep. Did you get that in?
Yeah, we've noted that down. Yeah, I mean we try and keep to a rough schedule, but yeah, I think some points from that we can take away to sort of see if we can time box an actual date per month or something around that, or say third Wednesday of the month, or as an example.
Yeah, the current schedule is like once in 2 sprints after we complete 2 sprints, which is like 4 weeks.
Yeah.
That's why we call it. So we will try to stick to that going also, but we can provide a rough release date as kind of for the whole year.
Yeah, we can put out a schedule for that if we're going to go down that road. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, thank you for that. Anyone online? Do you have any questions or any comments?
Robert from Vattenfall. We also have a weekly that's totally fine. But monthly releases, we are struggling with it to bring them into production. It's just, our process needs too much time, but we always need to clarify which changes are relevant for Vattenfall. Did we have some module or not? Because the release notes are normally for every customer. Then also quite often it's not sure, we are not sure, even me, how to test something to approve it. Because if something in production, our IT is saying it's an approved system. If then anything happens, that's not critical. So we really need always a user exception test. And that's it. And an estimation when something could be fixed would be nice. Even the low tickets. Ticket system is, if please someone could switch off the setting that the tickets are moved to the customer, to the vendor, customer vendor, every time when someone is commenting something. It's writing something or asking something, it's not always that it's with customer. Please somehow switch it off.
I'll blame Jibin for that one. No, I understand. That's it. I mean, Jira, we do that just because then we can focus on the ones that we've got an action on. So it clears the queues here. But yeah, we take that point on board. Thank you.
Also, the notifications that you're consistently receiving, is this the problem all, then it's just noise.
We also have some people from 3NL and Energy Alliance on the call. Not sure if sometimes some people are logging in to, of course, listen and then maybe leave for a moment. But I can see a lot of people from 3NL. Are some of you online right now? Maybe not.
Thumbs up.
We'll try later on.
Oh, they give you a thumbs up.
Oh, they are.
Yeah.
Very good. Good to see you here. We wish you were here in the meeting with us. And Elisabeth from Energy Alliance is also online, and Klaus from RWE. Super. All right. Let us know if you have any comments. Feel free to. I think you can unmute and speak if you want.
Yeah. So, I mean, while we wait for anyone to unmute, so again, this is just to say, I mean, obviously, the way in which support, say, are running meetings as such, or communication with them, are you finding that works well, or is there any suggestions that we can do to improve that area? Obviously, the software itself, we're doing what we can on the software. We know that sometimes that fixes can take time, but when it comes to our responses, are they good? Are they average? Just so we can sort of work out how we can improve your experience.
I think from my experience working through the tickets, I think it's always helpful that the team are always around you and I need to have a random Teams call or I have an urgent issue. So that's been very good and very helpful. So I think so far it's working well. The bi-weekly calls as well. I don't have anything to add, I think, because anytime I need something, I think they're always there to react quickly. So yeah, that's just something to add from my side.
Thank you. That's really good to hear. Thank you.
Approach maybe problem-driven directly via Teams, then I also get immediate support. But sometimes when I raise a medium or high ticket, then of course the first answer is always thank you for raising the ticket. We prioritize. This has no added value for me. And then sometimes after 1 or 2 weeks, I still see there isn't any update, and then I again, hey guys, what's the update? So this is a bit annoying.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah. The reason we put that in was just because we get tickets coming in from lots of places, and we want to make sure that the ticket has been picked up. So it's an identification that we know the ticket has been picked up and someone has initially looked at it, to purely from the fact that sometimes tickets can be miscategorized as low, medium, when they could be critical. So the first thing we ask the team to do is make sure you read all the tickets as they come in, just to double check that they have got the right prioritization on them, because we could be missing critical. So we send that as a notification just to let you know that we have done an initial overview very quickly on the ticket. We'll add it to the queue, and then we'll get to it soon when we can. I do appreciate on some of the lows and mediums that they do fall down the list because we get highs coming in, which will trump it in some cases. But we do have a policy where mediums and lows still need to be looked at, and they shouldn't always forever be ignored. But when we get quite a few highs coming in, they will just be looked at first. But if you do have any concerns about any of your tickets not being looked at, please do just ping on the ticket, or just escalate to Jibin personally via email or above, and then we will pick those up when we can. Obviously, depending on the busyness of the team. But I appreciate that. Thank you.
Claus has a question.
Yes.
The thing is that us two on here we're actually not participating in the release and what's meetings, but is it okay that we actually ask the people who participate and get their feedback and send it to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So Peter and Bridget normally join the calls. You're more than welcome to also join. We always say it's an open forum, so everyone should join the call. So more than welcome. It's not us pushing that. It's up to yourselves to have to join and have a voice.
So the status, how I understand, we were trying, so from our side, we are trying to kind of now have all releases, some all releases installed, so also for us to prepare for the major one. But I think how I understand is also that when this large one is being installed, then I understand we would expect your support to properly test also on our data, right? So that's because it's a major one.
Yeah, we pre-test, so it's being tested. What goes over to the customers for sure. Yeah, so expectation is testing should be limited. Yeah.
I mean, on that note, not to sell anything here, but we do offer a regression package that we would class, which is something where if somebody wants on a major release to have their specific data run through that based on their current version and the new major version, we can offer that as a service to take that and run a set of regression tests, which we will inform you what those tests are ahead of time. And then we will generate the results and send you a package based on what has been, what we have found during that, to give you either a level of comfort or just to help with you then taking it forward to do your testing. But that's something that Brady do offer as a package if we did it. Obviously, with every major release we send out, to do that for every customer would be very time consuming, but we're open to it. We do run through a specific set of tests that we have, but they're more generic. But we do offer a bespoke package if needed.
A small thing, because I remember wanting to release the big release, we were doing some testing, and every time it's done in our test environment. And then the experience when we got over to production and was implemented, the same thing we tested that we found up on was not implemented. And I don't know if it was actually internal from our side or it's actually something that guys should have seen that it should have been implemented when going into production, because that was the bug in the test. But it was several years ago, and that's the only time I tested.
Okay.
Okay, sorry, we couldn't quite hear that here, so apologies. But
no, I think I mean.
Okay, brilliant. If you've got that, that's perfect.
Klaus,
yeah, Klaus, I think you had a question and your hand went up and gave up, I think.
Yeah, I gave up. Hello, everyone. Sorry, I would have mentioned or asking questions earlier, but we couldn't unmute ourselves during the whole session. Now I can. I have only one question. Is there a general plan to get all your customers up to a current release? So we at RWE, we are still at 2023. And of course, we would like to take advantage from the features that you just shown in 24 and 25. When can we expect to get that our most recent bug fixes merged into one of the current releases?
And so we are planning a release around the end of September, beginning of October time. So which will include the 2025 release, and on top of that, all the changes done for RWE will be coming in. So that will be released around September, October. And that is when everybody will be in the same branch or the same source code.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Okay. Any other questions, any points, any comments about anything that you guys have?
Yeah, maybe I can just add a comment. Alex already commented. It's working pretty well. For us in general, infrastructure, obviously, there's always room for improvement. And in general, I think my impression is that it has improved quite a bit over the last years. I'm happy to see that. I just want to stress also from business side that obviously we work in a very dynamic environment, and there's a lot of time critical. There can be some really time critical issues, whether it's month-end reporting or the margining process, obviously. So for me, it's just important that we have the possibility to highlight it. Yeah. Or that is really clear between us and you, the criticality and the priority of these tickets. I think that's very important, and then also to deliver on the agreed timeline. It's very important for me. But again, in general, I think we've seen a big improvement last year, so very happy to see that.
Good, thank you.
I could also ask a question on the state of the test environments. We've at least we use both pre-prod and dev environment, and I feel often that whenever we do tests, the test system sort of feels weak in a way, often very buggy, sometimes for a long time doesn't open, and then usually for my sake, I send a message to Alex and he looks into it, and then it's fixed some magical way. But I don't know. I feel a lot of things in the test system is very slow and hard to do. For example, a simple thing as rescoring or recalculating exposures could sometimes take very long time, even though it's only a small thing I want to test. And some features that we have, there are sort of rolling on a date basis. If I want to do testing today, no, you can't. You actually have to wait until tomorrow. It sort of feels very slow, not very productive. So I don't know if this is something that you are working on improving the test systems, or if that is sort of just floating there in mind.
So I think if you are referring to the test systems, so normally the test systems and the production system, the configuration might vary. So because of that, there can be some sort of performance difference that you can see from the production versus test, especially when there are tasks running in test. So that's not same for all the clients. Some clients have the replica of production, and some clients have a lower configuration in the test environment. And even we have noticed that some clients you share the database. I mean, they have two environments, let's say the dev and the test being deployed in the same database server, where the RAM is not segregated properly. So because of these reasons, it can happen. And so it'll be if we can take a look at it and suggest some actions so that you don't face that issue, and maybe it'll be kind of, we can have a discussion with your infra team if required to get that sorted.
So which test environment to use for which activities? So like dev for a smoke test or pre-prod for proper end user test? Is it up to us?
Yes, it is up to you.
Yeah. I mean, just on that note, when it comes to Rohit mentioned earlier about hosting, what we do if we host is we constantly take backups of your production system, and at any moment when our customers want to do some testing, they'll ask us to load it straight into their test system, so the data is identical. Also, as well, we, as Rohit mentioned earlier, there's the ability to upscale and downscale any testing system, even temporarily, during or even take it offline for a long time and then bring it up when you need it, to save some costings there. So again, that's something we do for other products at Brady, and something that is available to do for CRisk if there is ever an issue with infrastructure at your end as such, or availability to, we can move databases around and do stuff ourselves. And usually that takes no time at all.
Yeah. Basically, with the Brady Cloud or the Microsoft hosted Azure, we can build a replica of your production environment fairly quickly, and it will be on demand. We can turn it on or off on demand. which will save the cost. Plus, you will get the same experience while testing, both in prod and test.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else from your side?
I think we're good, Ian.
Okay. From us in London, it's been great to be with you virtually. Wish we could have been there in person. Hopefully, we'll get to meet you in person next time. But it's been great to hear your comments. Been great to see your interaction during the couple of days. And thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, all.
Thank you.
Okay. That just brings us on to finishing off now. So it's been emotional. Thank you, everybody, for attending. Sydney, I don't know if you want to cover off a couple of things first.
Yeah, so just so you guys can see, first and foremost, thank you for coming. It was an absolute delight having you guys as a group. So probably Friday, maybe Monday, early next week, I'll talk to the guys about presentations. We'll send you a link to a landing page that will be password protected, but it'll be Brady Berlin, but you'll get all that information. Also, in that email, besides saying thank you for attending, here's the landing page, there'll also be a survey so that you can it'll only take about maybe 5 minutes, just so we can get a little bit of feedback, just so we can make sure that the next time we do this and we all gather together, it will be even better. So that's pretty much, and again, if you guys want, after this, we do have lunch. And then you are all free to go. So anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I mean, just a couple of things that we've got. So a couple of things that we'll all be sort of attending. So we've got the IECA in Prague in a few weeks' time. That Rob, Lars, and Marcus will be in attendance, and then myself and Rob will be in the annual conference in San Diego at the end of September. If anybody's going to be there. And then just lastly, just thank you to everybody for being here, for being in attendance, for being online. It's been a really good couple of days. So I hope you've all had a great time last couple of days. I'm in the applause for me already. But yeah, safe trip home. Some of us are traveling this afternoon. So thank you all again. And I'm sure we'll catch up all over the next few weeks and months. So thank you again for attending.
Thank you for all.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Thank you.